Hello and welcome back to
The Mentors.
This is Vadim.
And Sergey.
And you're listening to our weekly segment called the 5-Minute Pick-Me-Up, where we tell stories to motivate you for the week to come. And this week apparently is marketing week. We got marketing on our mind. Wednesday's episode featured two gentlemen that have been expert marketers for over a decade. They had some amazing, highly tactical advice to share with our audience. And actually, that same Wednesday, my evening class, my entrepreneurship class, I taught various customer acquisition channels and how to think about figuring out where to find your customers for your particular business. And so we decided we're going to essentially give you in a 5-minute snippet what I had my students learn over the course of an hour and 40 minutes.
So we decided to record this episode for those of you who might be a little bit stuck this week and you're just not generating enough ideas about potential marketing or advertising concepts you can try to grow your business or to try to get an idea off the ground to even test it. So we're just going to give you a very quick framework that we've used before that's been really helpful. We've taught NYU entrepreneurs as well.
Yeah, so this framework is called the Bullseye Framework. It is invented, well, actually, I don't know where it was originally invented, but the book that we heard about it on, or in, I should say, is the book Traction by Gabriel Weinberg and another dude. I forget who the co-author is.
We don't know.
Okay, we don't know.
We got the giggles.
But he's the founder of DuckDuckGo. And in that book, they use a very simple framework called the Bullseye Framework, where you start off wide, listing as many different ideas as you can about how you can reach your customers, marketing ideas. So the first ones are going to pop into your head that usually my students will start with is social media or flyers, right? Ads on Facebook, for example. But you make a really long list of all those different ideas, and they, of course, provide you with various categories that these ideas might live in. And then you try to narrow it down to the top 3 customer acquisition channels, those 3 channels which will live in the middle of the bullseye that you created, that you will test first.
Yeah, and I think on the actual framework, you actually start with as many ideas as you can in the biggest circle, usually 12 to 18 ideas, and then you narrow down the 6 that you think might be the easiest or quickest to test, or the least expensive, or those maybe that you just have experience in, and you're going to narrow it down from those, let's say 12 to about 6 of those. You test those, and then hopefully 3 out of the 6 are more successful than the others, and those are the ones that you really double down on from there, and you just do those 3 over and over again for a while.
Now, here's what most first-time entrepreneurs don't realize, that almost any business, even massive companies, only rely on 1 or 2 main primary customer acquisition channels. That means that 80% of the budget, typically, of course, this isn't the rule, but in most companies, especially earlier stage startups, 80% of the marketing budget is spent on only one channel. And the idea with this Bullseye framework is that once you get to your top 3, those are the 3 that you're going to test. But once you land on a channel that is working for you, you double down the rest of your budget on that channel. So here's how you can start making a list of the different ideas for how you can reach your customers. I do the same exact process in my class, and within 15 minutes, we usually come up with 30 plus ideas for how to reach your customers. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of different variations of ideas for how you can get in front of your customers, but here's 4 main categories that you can start splitting them up in as you make your own list. So here are those 4, very, very simple. Free online, free offline, paid online, and paid offline. Now, here's a few parameters to think about. The way that I delineate it in my classes, free doesn't always mean free. There's no such thing as a free lunch, Adam Smith, right? There's really nothing that's completely free. You're probably spending at the very least your time on it. So the way that I define free is if it's minimal resources. Right. So, for example, a paid advertising campaign on LinkedIn is obviously not free. You're using money, and there has to be a certain budget for you to see results. But what are some ideas? Let's throw in a few ideas, Sergey, of free or relatively inexpensive, very, very cheap customer acquisition channels. Let's start with free online.
So free online, a great example of that could be press that you earn. You might have to build relationships with journalists to do that, right, over time, so that'll take your time. But any kind of press you can get, any kind of, let's say maybe you can contribute on a blog that has your target audience and you can write an article in your name, maybe mention your product in that article. Yes, you're using your time to write that article, but it is a free way. You're reaching out to bloggers, you're trying to get in front of their audience, and hopefully that'll drive sales to you.
So a free offline variation could be printing out a bunch of flyers on high quality paper at your home printer and then going on campus if you're a college student and wherever you have permission, putting those flyers, right? Maybe putting them in dorms. Not completely free, you're still using paper and ink or whatever, but it's relatively inexpensive. There's not really a big budget that you're thinking about for this. Another relatively cheap way to do this is to offer giveaways. Again, not completely free, but hopefully the margins on whatever your product is, if it's a physical product, are high enough where it's very cheap. So for example, if you're selling food, it's very cheap to make a small quantity of that food and give it away as samples. These are a few really simple ideas. We urge you to read the book, and by the way, I did pull it up. It's called Traction, A Startup Guide to Getting Customers by Gabriel Weinberg and Justin Mayers. There's obviously a lot of different ways for you to find different resources online to start thinking about these ideas, but here's a simple framework for you to figure out the marketing for your business. Of course, rule of thumb, remember that the best place to start is where you think your customers are spending their time or where they might be looking for your product or service. So of course, it helps to first figure out what's the customer profile of who you're trying to reach. What exactly do they look like? Their demographics, their psychographics, and then backing into where you might find them and how you might attract them through various acquisition channels.
So hopefully this little lesson on the Bullseye Framework is going to motivate you this week to at least start coming up with a list of ideas for paid and free marketing campaigns to do that you can work off of. If you're stuck, Vadim and I oftentimes say writing down a list, something that we learned from James Altucher, a list of ideas can sometimes get you out of the funk and get you toward actually testing them to see what works.
That's it for the 5-minute pick-me-up for this week. Hope you have an awesome Monday, and we'll see you on Wednesday.